My name is Zach Schomler. I'm the quarterback analyst. And in fact, if you want, you can go to quarterbackanalyst.com to see all of my quarterback analysis videos. Today, the question I want to tackle is, what does the film say about the Super Bowl? Specifically, though, what does it say about the losing team, the San Francisco 49ers? What happened? And whose fault is it that they lost? Some people want to blame the head coach, Kyle Shanahan. He's the offensive play caller. But other people want to blame the quarterback, Jimmy Garoppolo. So let's find out. What does the film say? One of the forgotten narratives from this Super Bowl is that Jimmy Garoppolo actually played really good early on. In fact, the whole 49ers offense was operating at a really high level in the first half of this game. The 49ers had some gashing runs, and they were picking up big chunks of yardage. Jimmy Garoppolo was making some really good throws. He was also taking what the defense gave him underneath. In my opinion, this game really gets interesting in the second half. But there are three important things from the first half we need to first discuss. Number one is Jimmy Garoppolo's interception. It came on the first play of the second quarter, and it's a simple example of a quarterback trying to do too much. He's getting hit as he throws, and what he needs to do in this situation is just hold on to the ball and take the sack. Instead, he compounds a mistake. He makes a bad play even worse by forcing a throw into coverage, which causes an interception. And by the way, I think it's interesting. Everyone talks about Jimmy Garoppolo's bad interception. It's funny that people totally overlook the fact that Patrick Mahomes also threw an ugly interception in this game. Anyway, there were also two big moments right around the final 2 minutes of the first half we need to now discuss. So the 49ers stopped the Chiefs on 3rd and 14 with 1 minute and 53 seconds left to go in the first half. The 49ers had all three of their timeouts. Many people are upset with the way the 49ers head coach, Kyle Shanahan, allowed the clock to run down. He did not call a timeout after the 3rd and 14 stop. Instead, he allowed the clock to continue to run, which means that the Chiefs didn't punt the ball away until there was only 1 minute and 8 seconds left before halftime. Again, he could have stopped the clock, but he decided to let it run. And then later, on a 1st and 10 with 59 seconds left, the 49ers ran the ball, which got the clock running again. And then they continued to let the clock run down and didn't snap the ball on 2nd down until there was 27 seconds left on the clock. So the question is, why was Kyle Shanahan so conservative? The key here is field position. That 3rd and 14 play where the 49ers were on defense happened at midfield. That means that Kyle Shanahan knew the 49ers were going to get the ball deep in their own territory once the Chiefs punted the ball away. And in fact, they did. That 1st and 10 play where they ran the ball, they had the ball on their own 20-yard line. Here's the danger in this situation. If you go 3 and out and you don't run out the clock before you punt the ball away, you risk giving Patrick Mahomes, the former NFL MVP, the ball with time on the clock and good field position around midfield. That's a bad idea. Kyle Shanahan was conservative because he was backed up in his own territory. And he didn't want to give Patrick Mahomes momentum going into halftime. Now, the other moment of contention before halftime was a big catch by George Kittle with 14 seconds left that got called back for offensive pass interference. Now, if you watch the play at full speed from far away, it looks like there's no penalty here. It seems like the 49ers got screwed out of points before halftime. But the reality is, it truly was offensive pass interference. George Kittle straightened his arm and pushed off. Here's what receivers are taught from a young age. You can't straighten your arm. What you can do is kind of chicken wing a guy, which means you push off a little bit, but you don't fully extend your arm. But the minute you lock out your elbow, that's offensive pass interference. And if you do that, it will be called every single time. If you watch closely, that's what George Kittle did. He fully extended his arm. Now let's talk about the second half, because that's when the Chiefs finally began to slow down the 49ers running game. How? What changed? That's what's interesting. Schematically, the Chiefs actually changed very little. On the 49ers' earlier big runs, the Chiefs lined up with 7 guys in the box. But they over-pursued and got beat up front. What that means is that in the first half, the Chiefs were making the right defensive calls to put guys in the right position to be successful, but they weren't executing. As the game went on, the Chiefs transitioned from being close to actually finally making tackles and getting stops. The Chiefs defense finally began to do a better job executing in the second half, and the reality is that they just tackled better after halftime. Things began to go downhill for 49ers quarterback Jimmy Garoppolo on a 3rd and 5 with 10 minutes left in the third quarter. He had George Kittle wide open in the middle of the field, and instead, he decided to throw underneath to Tevin Coleman. It's an example of Jimmy Garoppolo predetermining where he's going to throw the ball, rather than simply reading the defense. What happened is he decided to throw to Tevin Coleman before he even snapped the ball. And we saw this again on the 49ers' next drive. It was 2nd and 8, and the 49ers sent a motion man across the formation. Now, Jimmy Garoppolo saw two things pre-snap that told him it was man coverage. Number one, he saw a Chiefs defender blatantly follow the motion man from one side of the field to the other. And number two, the pre-snap alignment by the Chiefs defense would suggest that it's man coverage. So what Jimmy does is picks the matchup he likes best against man coverage and throws the ball there. Here's the problem, though. You still have to read the coverage. In theory, yes, George Kittle should not be open. He should be covered across the middle because there's a safety sitting in the middle of the field. However, nobody covers George Kittle. He's wide open. And Jimmy G didn't even give him a look because he predetermined where he was throwing the ball rather than reading the defense. It's good to have a pre-snap plan. Every quarterback should. But you still got to read the defense after you snap the ball. Now, in the end, that play didn't matter. The 49ers would go on to score a touchdown 3 plays later anyway. There were 2 throws that set up a Raheem Mostert touchdown run. But Jimmy G deciding who he's throwing to pre-snap and not reading the defense is still a big problem. Now, before we finish with Jimmy G, we need to talk about the 49ers running game. Many people are mad about the 49ers play calling from this Super Bowl. People say that late in the game, the 49ers didn't run the ball enough. And it's really easy to look at a piece of paper that says the 49ers ran the ball this many times and they threw the ball this many times. But you have to pay attention to context. People obsessed with numbers that don't pay attention to context drive me nuts. I hate it. Here's what happened on the next 49ers drive. It's 1st and 10 with 10 minutes left to go in the fourth quarter, and the 49ers run the ball on 1st down and get stuffed. Now remember, the Chiefs have proven their ability to stop the 49ers running game. People say you got to keep running the ball because you got to run more time off the clock. And yeah, in theory, that's a great premise. But you also have to acknowledge that in order to keep running time off the clock, you also have to get first downs. So on 2nd and 9, Kyle Shanahan makes a great play call. Jimmy G has Deebo Samuel wide open, but he misses the throw high. Oof. And then a false start makes 3rd and 9, 3rd and 14 instead. And here's my question. Do you want the 49ers to run the ball on 3rd and 14? Does that really make any sense? No. You're trying to get first downs to keep the drive alive so you continue to run time off the clock. Now, on the next 49ers drive, the 49ers are now leading 20-17, and they go 3 and out. On 1st and 10, they ran the ball for 5 yards. And then on 2nd and 5, Kyle Shanahan made another great play call. George Kittle is wide open, and the ball is knocked down at the line of scrimmage. And then here's what's baffling. On 3rd and 5, again, George Kittle is wide open. And it's so frustrating because Jimmy G doesn't throw to him. It's another case where Jimmy G decided where to throw pre-snap rather than reading the defense. Now, on the very next 49ers drive, this time they're losing 24-20. And by the way, on 1st and 10, they ran the ball for 17 yards. Oh, but I thought they abandoned the run. Next, they had a good throw to Kittle. He grabs 8 yards. Then a big throw to Kendrick Bourne gets him even more yards. He makes a nice move and gets out of bounds. The 49ers are really moving the ball well. And here's where things get controversial, I guess. It's 1st and 10 with 1 minute and 49 seconds left. And the 49ers ran 4 straight passing plays. I think it's fine to call 4 straight passing plays here, especially when you hear how it went down and what happened and you realize, oh, they were good play calls. But you know what? You can be the judge. On 1st and 10, it was a great play call. Deebo Samuel was wide open. But Chris Jones knocks the ball down at the line of scrimmage. There's nothing you can do as a play caller when a defensive lineman gets his arms up and tips a pass. On 2nd and 10, Jimmy G is too slow to get the ball out. There is a brief window where Kendrick Bourne is open if he gets it out quickly. But Jimmy Garoppolo is way too casual and slow and gets lucky he's not picked off. Now, 3rd and 10 is the dagger. Emmanuel Sanders is wide open deep, but Jimmy G overthrows him. It would have been either a touchdown or at least 1st and goal. That's a painful one that's going to haunt him for a long time. Now, on 4th and 10, you have to throw the ball. The Chiefs play great coverage. Nobody's open. And Frank Clark makes a great play and gets a sack. That's what happened on those 4 straight pass plays. From a play caller's perspective, they were the right play calls. But you had 1 ball tipped, 2 throws where the quarterback didn't execute, and a 4th and 10 where a guy made a great play and got a sack on your quarterback. That's not Kyle Shanahan's fault. Now, there is one final play we could talk about. At this point, the game is over. The 49ers are losing 31-20, and Jimmy G throws a seam ball. He's late, and he puts too much air under the throw, which allows the defender a chance to make a play at the ball, and Kendall Fuller makes a crazy good play and grabs an interception. But it's like, either way, it's inconsequential. There was 1 minute left, and the game was over. So here's the question, and it's a harsh one. Whose fault is it? I gotta say, it's not Kyle Shanahan's fault. He made great play calls, and many times, guys were open, and either Jimmy Garoppolo would simply miss the throw inaccurately, or the ball was tipped at the line of scrimmage, or let's be honest, Jimmy Garoppolo would make bad decisions. Multiple times, especially George Kittle was wide open, and Jimmy G would predetermine where he was going rather than reading the defense and reacting. He would make a decision before he even snapped the ball. I'm going to throw to Kendrick Bourne, or I'm going to throw to Emmanuel Sanders, rather than reading the defense and reacting. That's a gigantic problem that's inexcusable from Jimmy Garoppolo. It's also, I got to say, it's weird people just blame Kyle Shanahan. Everyone's like, Kyle Shanahan's the guy who blew a big lead in the Super Bowl. But nobody talks about Robert Saleh, the defensive coordinator, the guy in charge of the defense that gave up 21 points in the final 7 minutes of the Super Bowl. Nobody talks about that, and it's a little bit weird. Kyle Shanahan gets all the blame, and he's really the guy who did a great job throughout the game. People also keep saying the 49ers didn't run the ball enough, and that's just stupid. You have to look at the context of what happened. You want the 49ers to run the ball in 3rd and 14 or in a 2-minute drill? Come on, stop. He called the right pass. First of all, he called pass plays, yes, but he called the right pass plays, and guys were open many, many times. Now, the harsh reality of this Super Bowl is that Jimmy Garoppolo, the 49ers quarterback, didn't make enough plays down the stretch. That's really harsh, but it's true. He wasn't able to keep up with the Chiefs quarterback, Patrick Mahomes. He was predetermining throws and not throwing to George Kittle. He was missing Emmanuel Sanders. That throw, missing Emmanuel Sanders deep on 3rd and 10, is going to haunt him forever. He's going to always think about that moment where he had an opportunity to take the lead late in the Super Bowl, and he missed the throw on 3rd and 10. And then, don't forget he also overthrew Deebo Samuel a couple times. For Jimmy Garoppolo, it was really a tale of 2 halves. He was good in the first half, and then he kind of fell off the rails in the second half. But people act like he was terrible the entire game, and that's simply not true. Yes, at the end of the game, Jimmy Garoppolo did not make enough plays to keep up with Patrick Mahomes. But here's why I wouldn't give up on Jimmy Garoppolo. All the mistakes he made were fixable. Yes, Jimmy G needs to make improvements for sure. But he's not a bad quarterback. The narrative that he's a bad quarterback and they should move on is silly. People forget this was his first year ever as a starting quarterback playing the entire season. In his first season as a quarterback playing the full year, he led his team to the Super Bowl. That's not a bad quarterback. I don't understand. In fact, really, the truth is he's a pretty good quarterback. He makes a lot of good plays. Yes. Oh, I'm sorry. He couldn't keep up with maybe the best quarterback we've ever seen, Patrick Mahomes. Did he make mistakes? Absolutely, Jimmy Garoppolo made mistakes. The truth is that watching the tape from this game is going to be really painful. Jimmy Garoppolo is going to see things he did on film and go, oh, man, I blew it. I missed George Kittle open. I missed a 3rd and 10. I did this, I did that. But all Jimmy Garoppolo can do moving forward is learn from his mistakes, and I think he's going to do that. He's a good quarterback. He's shown progression every single year I've watched him. And again, don't forget, this was only his first year ever playing an entire season as a starting quarterback. Jimmy Garoppolo has a bright future ahead. I wouldn't give up on him. I think it's really, really silly. And that is what the film says about the Super Bowl.